Corporate incompetence is on the rise, and it has been for a long period of time. You can observe it almost every single day, and especially when we get to quarterly reports. Recently, Hasbro showed us they were Hasbroke, and it's a problem that's been going on for more than a year, maybe closer to two, probably since they lost their previous CEO to cancer. Well, what can be done, what's being done, and what has been done is the subject of today's video. Because Hasbro is Hasbroke, and there's a decent chance they could go bankrupt. But before we get to our first subject, this particular article here, let's talk about the fact that I sponsor myself. That's right. Beachpunk.us is my site. I share with a couple of creators, and we make great merchandise. We have incredible, unique things you're not going to find anywhere else, and some of it directly sponsors me, like, let's say, the Rooster collection or the Casino tikis or any of the other things that you can find there that are on shirts, hats, shoes, towels, you name it. It's amazing. But one thing to visit before we visit this is that, hey, I'm on a subscriber drive. So if you aren't subscribed to the channel, please turn that little red button to gray. It'll truly help me. I thank you in advance for doing so because it's about 40% of the people consistently that aren't subscribed to the channel. But onward to Hasbroke, and I did create the logo that's down there. Thank you. But it looks like Hasbro is about, experiencing some downtimes. A 20% revenue drop just in the last quarter alone. Over $1 billion in loss. But I want to go back to the beginning because, it's not quite the beginning, but I want to go back to where things started to be telling. You see, Hasbro paid about $4 billion to acquire E1, an in-house film and television studio system of their very own, so they could make their own media. It was a pretty brilliant idea, cooked up, I believe, by the previous CEO, and they had a way forward if they so chose. Licensing out IP certainly works well if you have no interest in doing it yourself, but they were going to try to do something. So E1 comes out $4 billion. Now, Hasbro eventually, well, not eventually, but actually had to turn around and sell E1 with both the TV and film things attached for about $500 million, and a catalog of stuff went along with it. There were a few exceptions, things that were just too valuable to part with, but for the most part, this was a terrible decision made by, this guy right here, Chris Cox. And he's basically the worst leader to follow up a successful leader in a long, long time, unless you are looking at Disney, which, believe me, we've got a video coming out about them tomorrow. But Hasbro's E1 was forced prior to the sale to part with about 20% of its employees. You're going to hear a number consistently being repeated here, 20%. Now, 20% of the employees is for cost cutting, but what that'll actually do is it'll bring the total head count down to a manageable level to right size it. Correct. And the problem is this always happens right before there is a major move to, sell or merge or do something else to basically align things to make it more palatable. And so as E1 laid people off, they went up for sale. And of course, recently, in the toy business, they were prompted to eliminate another 1,100 jobs, the 20% of its workforce. And that is because of the ongoing malaise in the toy business, which, again, I would argue they created because, they're not making things that are compelling and they are licensing things that are, self-destructing. Again, I'm looking at you, Disney. But this news was only back in, December of 2023, so not that many months ago. Here we are in 2024 as we head in, and now the Hasbro financials have lost in the last quarter $1.06 billion. And if you didn't see this coming based on the number of layoffs, I can't help you. But the Rhode Island-based global toy company Hasbro reported a decline in its reported a decline of 20% of its fourth quarter revenue and issued a downbeat 2024 forecast. What does that mean? Well, it means that they intend to lose more money, and they have no intention of stopping that. And no amount of layoffs is going to help them because at a certain point, you've removed people that actually make you money. That's a real issue. But more pain is coming when it comes to this company. The company now expects to cut another $750 million in costs by the end of 2025. So for the 80% of you that were still left after the last cuts, be looking for another job. I'm just going to warn you. Now, that is a considerable increase from their $350 to $350 million to $400 million previous goal. In December, the toy maker, as we mentioned, laid off 1,100 people after it had already cut 15% of its workforce earlier in the year. And again, that's not even touching what they did with E1, but that's a whole other kettle of fish. So it looks like they performed very poorly. Earnings per share 38 cents versus 66 cents expected, which is 50% less. Revenue of 1.29 billion versus what the expectation was of 1.36 billion. And for the last 3 months, Hasbro has lost $1.06 billion or $7.64 per share. That's huge. The year prior, they had only lost $128.9 million or 93 cents. Fascinating. And here's the statement. Guided by our strategy of fewer, bigger, and better, we had important wins across both toys and games while making progress in our transformation during the challenging 2023. Despite the macroeconomic backdrop, we are entering 2024 with a healthier balance sheet, all right, a leaner cost structure, and a diverse portfolio of industry-leading toy and game brands that support our capacity to invest in the business and maintain our commitment to returning cash to shareholders via our category-leading dividend. You're going to have a very down 2024. I don't anticipate you being able to provide anybody any money anytime in the future, at least not for a while. And they know that too, because he's continued to say our refreshed leadership team is bringing innovative new products to our fans. At the same time, we are taking the necessary actions to transform Hasbro and deliver long-term profitable growth, starting with driving significant profit growth across our segments in 2024 and building momentum in our innovation pipeline between now and 2025. Last line, taken all together, the actions throughout the full year have positioned the company for improved financial performance in 2024 and beyond. Wow. But to get back to the major coverage here, they dropped 20% of revenue. Nobody was interested in buying their stuff. Licensing hasn't really been a rescue for them. And I don't know. This is a toy company that used to have so many formidable IPs. They made toys that people not only, well, the kids played with and the adults collected. And they really kind of started to lean too heavily, my goodness, words are hard today, heavily on an adult toy market collector business. That's not a winning strategy, and neither is turning away or turning off people that were purchasing your Wizards of the Coast games by inserting a bunch of stuff into it. You could have remained profitable, but you went towards politically ideological. That doesn't make sense. You can witness other companies doing the same thing and getting the same results, and we're headed into an economic downturn, the likes of which, well, I've only seen once in my lifetime, which was back during the Jimmy Carter era. And it could get worse than that. So what are you doing here? So the company has reduced its inventory by more than 50% compared to the year prior. That's interesting. So it was productive, although not without some challenges, according to the chief financial officer, Gina Gautier. As we navigated the current environment, we took aggressive steps to optimize our inventory, reset cost structure, and sharpen our portfolio focus on play with the E1 film and TV divestiture. Well, that's a fancy way of saying, yeah, we dumped E1 because we weren't making money with it because we don't know how. And we took a bath to the tune of $3.5 billion on that alone. We also reduced our inventory, which means we made less because people were buying less. Why are they buying less? You should have an answer to that question. Interestingly enough, they were honest. Hasbro expects further revenue declines in the year ahead, and in the Wizards of the Coast segment, the company expects a 3 to 5% revenue dip to go along with all the other 3 to 5% revenue hits that they've taken because of what they've done to D&D, Magic, et cetera, et cetera. Coupled with a 7 to 12% hit to the consumer products business. Wow. Unbelievable. So, if they do manage to cut $750 million in costs by the end of 2025, I don't think they're going to yield a win here regardless. Wow, Hasbro was an amazing company. What happened? I don't know. Do you know? Do you have any thoughts on what's going on inside of Hasbro? Do you think my assessment that perhaps politics and some very poor decision making are essentially what led to the position that they're in today? I don't know how that could be argued. I do know that Hasbro was doing much, much better under the previous leadership that was trying to move forward and be creative. And now it's like taking a giant step back and diving into politics at the worst possible time in a cratering economy. If you have better ideas than mine, let me know down in the comments section below because I'd love to have a conversation on this. Do you still collect Hasbro toys or any toys at all? Are there things that aren't in the marketplace that you would purchase if they were being produced? And do you think that it was foolhardy for Hasbro to essentially jettison E1 Entertainment? Your guess is as good as mine. And on that note, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya.